So as we look at what the United States Foreign Commercial Service does, is really does the matchmaking to look at the needs of a country and tie it up and match up with where are the technologies which would make sense. The second stuff we do is we work with the World Trade Centers, 300 plus of them across the world, which allows us to extend our network even further. And beyond that, we work with chambers such as yourselves. We look at these as extensions of ourselves in terms of tapping in and understanding through you what can be done in countries like India. And finally, we work with trade associations across the world. Now, let me give you one example of the connectedness. I left India I'd say about 2 months ago, or less than 2 months ago, and I went from here to spend 10 days in China. And I did the same stuff. I've gone through 3 cities, meeting both in terms of the business community and then the government community in this country. And I did the same in China. And when we went, by the time we came to Hong Kong, we signed, just think about what we achieved. We signed what we call the Pacific Bridge Initiative, PBI for short, where a sovereign government of a different country endorsed the National Export Initiative of the US President. And we worked together to build plans on how we could together execute the plan so that a win-win position happens for both businesses in both countries. As a consequence of that, we co-market our programs. We will use each other's websites. We will use each other's marketing mechanisms to cross-pollinate. We will support each other's trade missions and trade shows. So I give you that as one example. And as we look at it, that was relevant for Hong Kong. There are many other things which would be relevant because we do this not on a Teflon-based, one-size-fits-all, but rather in terms of what makes sense. Now, in this country, what we would like to do, and this comes through initiatives from our local offices and initiatives from folks like you, is to set up a council of importers. We always, where there is export one side, there is import on another side. And while people have generally focused on export, it is essential and necessary to start focusing on importers as a community. Because we do know, going back to the technologies which we have, that a cachet of a made in the US is significantly higher than a cachet of made elsewhere. And the US has the technologies which other countries need, and we have the products and services which have the ability to improve lives and livelihoods worldwide. So the National Export Initiative and all bilateral mechanisms and the win-win strategies we look through is a part of a larger policy framework which straddles enhancing competitiveness through innovation, education, and commercialization. And the National Export Initiative is one part of that commercial mix. So I hope I've been able to convey to you and put this in context, and I will be more than happy to take any questions you have. Thank you very much.
My question was going to be based on a specific subject of solar energy. In solar energy, India has kind of made up its mind mandating that solar panels, for example, need to be manufactured in India. They need to be Indian made. Even if you're going to be a US company, you need to kind of set up manufacturing base here. Is that one of the hurdles you're facing with the Indian government? What other, I'm not going to call them hurdles because you're not, but what other challenges or issues are you facing with the Indian government as far as the export-import part of it? Especially, obviously my vested interest is going to be in infrastructure, but feel free to.
No, I had very constructive conversations when I was here. As I said a couple of months ago, I was at the Direct Conference, which is the Delhi Renewable Energy Conference, which is every 2 years, one capital in the world hosts this conference. I had the privilege of leading a delegation of 239 U.S. representatives, 203 from the private sector, by a long shot, the largest and the biggest delegation to that conference. We actually ended up signing and inking 11 different deals, and a majority of which, in fact, almost all of which were in the solar energy space, because that's what India has greater demand for, if you may. And Indian government, if my memory serves me right, had agreed to commission as much as 13 gigawatts of power from solar-related projects, and had further committed to a 2020 plan as part of Dr. Singh's signing at Copenhagen. But even if you look at the 2032, it is huge, because as I reflected, and I did have conversations with, interestingly, two different ministers, both touching the field. You're talking about Farooq Abdullah on renewable energy and Kamal Nath on infrastructure. The issues are really the same. I see it, the only constraint to India's growth, to your growth, are energy, one, and education, two. And on both those dimensions, I believe the U.S. has the technology which you need. Now, your question further was, in addition, what are the constraints? India has a local manufacturing requirement here, and I think while that is acceptable to a degree, there is a very thin line between bringing technologies here and the ability to protect technologies which entrepreneurs need. So the first issue is strengthening the entire patent regime. The second is going with understanding what is the right technology to have and ensuring that you have the right technology, and not jumping into something just because you want to locally manufacture it. So that could be a constraint to India, not necessarily a constraint to the United States. And lastly, the issue is what is the right technology, and I had a conversation just with one of you before I started speaking here. How much is the footprint or space required to generate the same degree of electricity, if you may? And we believe it is in that context and all those parameters, including the transformational projects which you're working on, which I talked to you about, but that we have the right technology or the better technology, the superior technology. But trick is not to have the superior or the better. Trick is to have the technology which matches India's needs. And at this point in time, the government is working with 25 megawatts and 50 megawatt plants. And we have many companies in that space, and we've been able to match that. But in an overall sense, I think we all need to work, and India and the US work extensively with several bilateral forum which we have, from CEO forum to strategic dialogue and so on and so forth. We need to continue to be working on making sure that exports are seamless and we take the red tape out of whatever we need to do. Long-winded answer for a short question.
It's an academic question only. Tomorrow, I think you are the marketing person of the business expansion from American Innovation and other things. Gujarat government is launching solar energy park. Are you involved with that?
I can't specifically answer whether we are involved with the park itself, but we are involved significantly with the Gujarat government, because Gujarat government actually had taken the lead on the solar space. If you look at it, it's Gujarat, Karnataka, Rajasthan, Andhra Pradesh, just to name four amongst 7 or 8 of the provinces where Gujarat had clearly taken the lead. And we are involved in working with not just the government in Delhi, but we are involved with working with the governments at the state level and facilitating, most importantly, what are we trying to do here? Is it technology? Is it distribution of power? Is it working with your utilities in the conveying of power? And how do you finance these projects? And our team in the in India, the U.S. Foreign Commercial Service team in India, has actually convened all the major players, including the governments of Gujarat and the financial people, to make this happen. So I think we feel extremely good as one of the facilitators to try to make this happen and move forward. So we work closely in Gujarat, and we applaud all the effort done there.